Does capital punishment have a role in civilised society?
Does capital punishment have a role in civilised society? And obviously this is in the context of Troy Davis being executed today in Georgia, because we don't have capital punishment in this country. Harriet Harman, does it have a place in a civilised society?
No, I don't think it does, for two reasons. Firstly, because I think that if you regard the taking of a human life by somebody, the crime of murder, as so serious as it is, the idea that you then kill somebody yourself, I think that that is just completely wrong. But also because although we all strive to make the criminal justice system as accurate as possible to make sure that the person who is convicted is really the guilty person, sometimes the criminal justice system gets it wrong. And if you've had capital punishment, you can never put that right. So for that reason, I vote against it when it comes into the House of Commons.
And what about in the United States? What do you make of President Obama's refusal yesterday to intervene?
Well, I'm totally against it, and I think that the British government's position is against it, and we say to the Americans that we don't approve of them doing it, and they carry on doing it. But, you know, obviously we don't think that they should, and we're always on, you know, the side of helping the appeal.
Priti Patel.
Well, I come to this debate from a totally different perspective. In the sense that, I mean, I have said this before and I'll say it again, that I do actually think when we have a criminal justice system that continuously fails in this country, and where we have seen murderers, rapists and people who have committed the most abhorrent crimes in society go into prison and then are released from prison to go out into the community to then re-offend and do the type of crimes that they've committed again and again, I think that's appalling. And actually on that basis alone, I would actually support the reintroduction of capital punishment to serve as a deterrent, because I do think we do not have enough deterrence in this country for criminals. And let's not forget, murderers and rapists and criminals of that nature choose to commit the crimes that they commit.
Vince Cable.
Well, I think it's possible to believe, as Priti does, that we need to have tough deterrent sentences without executing people. I mean, what was so appalling in this case in the United States, and I totally agree with what Harriet said, is that I think 7 of the 9 jurors have since withdrawn their support for his conviction. They agreed,
the witnesses?
The witnesses,
yeah.
yes. They said, well, you know, we were put up to it by the local police chief. The evidence is absolutely tainted and discredited. And, you know, this case, probably more than any other, demonstrates why capital punishment is wrong, that perfectly innocent people can go to death, and then there's no comeback. I mean, the things I've done as a business secretary in this government, one of the things I am proud of having done was that I introduced a stop on the export of the liquids that are used in the injection of people in the United States, because there's a firm in Britain that happens to be the only supplier. And as a result of that, I don't know whether it's resulted in any changes in individual cases, but it certainly forced the states involved to have a fresh look at them. And I think the answer to the question is a very simple one, that in a civilised society, this is not the right way to punish people.
Okay. Would it... The man up there in the... You, sir, in the check shirt there.
Mr Cable, you said earlier it's a dangerous world out there 2 questions ago, and it links into what Harriet Harman was saying about the cutbacks and public sector. Immaterial whether I agree with capital punishment or not. We have a police force in the West Midlands area protecting 2.5 million people that has been cut back by 22%. Is it about time for a Royal Commission on policing and a complete review on the criminal justice system?
That's a slightly different point. Ian Hislop.
Well, I mean, 2 points. One is, because I'm from private eye, I can't resist saying that Vince may be proud of that, but we've still got one of the largest arms industries in the world, and we're very happy to export lots of death-dealing machinery to anybody who wants to buy it. That's cheap point number 1. Slightly more expensive point is, for 50 years, private eye has pretty much in most issues exposed a miscarriage of justice, and a lot of them have been murders. Over the years, large numbers of these cases have been found to be entirely wrong, and the men convicted almost all of the men, there's a couple of women, have been found innocent. So we would have killed those people, and in some of those very high-profile cases, which involve terrorism cases, we would have made very dangerous new martyrs by executing people who turned out not to have committed the murders involved. So on a purely practical basis, whatever you think it says about the civilised nature of your society or not, I think it would be incredibly dangerous to have capital punishment back.
Priti Patel, are you influenced at all by that argument of miscarriages of justice?
No disrespect, Ian, but I'm not. On the basis that I think, you know, this is really about our criminal justice system, actually. And I think if any, you know, for any conviction, for example, you need ultimate burden of proof. You really do, and that means that...
But that's his point, that they find these mistakes all the time.
Well, I mean, that's...
Are you saying they were guilty, all these people?
No, I'm not saying they were guilty. Obviously, I'm not.
So
not
they
with
would
those
be
cases.
dead?
No, the point...
They would?
Well, the point is, as I said earlier on, this is about having deterrence. You know, if you have strong deterrence of that nature...
It's not a deterrent,
as well,
killing the wrong people.
Well, no, capital punishment would act as a deterrent.
Sorry, what's it? Go on. Your voice was lost in
The point that I'm making is that to have capital punishment, that would act as a deterrent, and that is the first point here. The second issue is, this is actually about our criminal justice system doing what it says on the tin. So you have to, you know, before anybody is sentenced, they've got to have full proof. They really has. You know, in the case of Troy Davis in America as well, you know, that was a case that went to court. They were convinced they had full burden of proof there. They really were. Now, that's a matter for them. But in any case in this country, if capital punishment was on the statute books, for example, you'd need to have complete and utter burden of proof.
But you had it in these cases.
Justine.
I'm interested to know whether there's any evidence that it is, in fact, a deterrent.
There is evidence that it isn't.
That would be my one point. Other than that, I completely agree with Harriet and with Ian. I'm sort of with Desmond Tutu on this, who says if you take a life when a life has been taken, that's revenge, not justice.
We've got a lot of hands up here. You, sir, man with the beard there in the middle there.
I'd just like to point out that actually 2 people received lethal injection yesterday. And one was a case in Texas where it was a particularly heinous crime. And that went unnoticed by a lot of people because of the other crime. And I certainly think with Priti's point, this is about having a deterrent there. It's not about the ultimate taking of a life. It's about having a deterrent.
How can it not be about taking life?
Well, because I think if you've got boundaries that are set, then people understand the parameters of the crime they're going to commit. Be it a murder, be it a rape. If you've got a deterrent in place for that, then it may make people think twice about actually what they're going to do in order to commit that crime. And I think that, you know, if there was a referendum in the UK on this, I think a lot of you people there would be very, very surprised about how the British public feel about that as a system of justice. I'm not saying it's particularly right, but what I am saying is, as a deterrent, sometimes with the system that we have and the way it's backed up and prisons are full, I think really and truly it should be looked at in a very serious manner by
when you say as a deterrent, you do mean that some people should be executed.
I remember when I was at school, David, in Birmingham, and I remember that the cane was a deterrent. You know, just the thought that you may have the cane, you may get the cane, was enough for you not to do certain things.
The man up there in the white shirt, with the dark hair.
An eye for an eye would make the whole world blind. I completely disagree with Priti. Death is not a deterrent. Taking somebody's freedom and putting them into prison or secluding them or excluding them from society, because a rapist will always rape within their behaviour and a murderer will murder. They may consider, oh, I'll risk death, but whether it is in their behaviour, they will commit that crime. Therefore, death should never ever be used as a punishment. Capital punishment does not act as a deterrent. Right. Only excluding people from society would act as a deterrent.
Okay. And I come to the man to in front of you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what that guy said there. I think it's been proven that the death penalty doesn't actually work on any level, really. Not financially, it costs a lot more. And also, in terms of a deterrent, if it was a deterrent, in Texas, people on death row wouldn't continue to be going up. And I don't think it's a particularly rational thing when you go out to kill someone. and receive the death penalty.
Just before we leave this, the gentleman here said that we'd be surprised, the public was surprised at the number of people in favour. Are there any more people in favour of the death penalty who'd like to speak up for it here? You, sir, with the spectacles there.
I totally agree with you, Priti. And how can the guy with the beard say that by excluding people from the community will improve and will stop criminality? How can he say that when criminality has been on the increase for the past few years? It hasn't gone down, it's been on the increase. Things like chopping someone's head off or whatever, that will stop people from committing crimes. Just the thought of it will.
Okay. Do you think your party and your Prime Minister are out of touch on this?
I don't, to be honest. I mean, I think
they're in touch.
Well,
not to let it come before the House.
Well, don't forget. I mean, we've had the launch of the e-petitions recently before the summer as well, and of course, a lot of people wanted a debate. They signed up the petition to actually get a debate on this issue. Now, I have no issue with having a debate on this, and I think we should. And also, I put this within the context that I think far too many politicians do run away from debating issues like this as well, because they don't want to associate themselves with an either-or position. And I think the other point to make here, and this comes back to the issue about a deterrent in our criminal justice system, we see the revolving door with murderers and rapists and paedophiles as well. And nobody thinks about the human rights of the families, the victims, the people that have really suffered here. And that is really where they've got fundamental failings.
Okay. Right, let's go on to another question, I think, at this stage. And I'll take this one from Tony McDermott, please.